Let's talk Ole Miss recruiting because the Rebels keep winning and other teams keep losing their coaches, meaning the rumors surrounding Lane Kiffin just keep getting louder and louder. Maybe that's a good thing for Ole Miss fans because it means Ole Miss is winning. And we're going to talk with Zach Berry of OM Spirit about, we're going to hit on the rumors, but also Ole Miss recruiting is hot right now, and there are some major flip targets on campus, coming to campus. We're going to talk all about it. Before we get to that, Ole Miss fans, do me a favor real quick. Hit subscribe to the Rivals Recruits channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. All right, let's bring in insider Zach Berry. And Zach, just first, your thoughts on what we're hearing surrounding Lane Kiffin. I mean, you can't ignore it.
Yeah, it's hard to ignore. I've been making the joke, and it seems like everybody else is too. Like, hey, Lane Kiffin can't coach everybody. Mm-hmm. You've got Florida that wants him, LSU. That you've had some rumblings and rumors about Steve Sarkisian in the NFL. Texas would come calling. So everybody wants a piece of Lane Kiffin right now. Ole Miss is one of the hotter teams in the country, and I think it's kind of a perfect storm with how much. You're winning at this clip right now after you lose the tight one on the road to Georgia. You go on the road and handle business in Norman against Oklahoma. Now everything is in front of you where you get back home, you can run the table and finish 11-1, and then things can get very, very interesting timeline and logistics-wise for these programs that are trying to hire Lane Kiffin.
Right. And let's talk a little timeline here because what makes it all so interesting is that signing day is always that first Wednesday in December. The early one is always that first Wednesday in December. So I believe it falls on December 3rd this year. Well, December 3rd is well before the playoffs. And, Florida fans want to know, LSU fans want to know, hey, when are we going to know from Lane Kiffin whether he's coming or not? But, Zach, when will Ole Miss know? When's the window do you think Ole Miss would know for sure that they have Lane Kiffin for the long run?
Yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, I'll just to be upfront before I start giving my opinion, I don't think anyone knows anything. I don't think Lane Kiffin's told anybody anything. I'm sure Jimmy Sexton is talking to people and hearing, all the overtures. I just don't think Lane has said anything. To be honest, I don't think Lane even knows. I think he is focused on this team. He is focused on getting to the college football playoff. Look, Lane is a highly, highly, highly competitive person. And he took the Ole Miss job and wanted to get Ole Miss to a national championship. Now it's 7-1. All your remaining tough games are at home, and then you travel down the road to Starkville for the finale. You have a legitimate shot at 11-1 and getting to the college football playoff. And I think that that's his main focus right now. And I know that's probably not the answer that people want. It's not juicy. But to be honest, I don't think anyone really knows. If people are out there saying, well, sources are telling me that Kiffin's saying this or this, I don't think anybody knows whether it's contract numbers or really anything that he said. I mean, people in that building are locked in. They're getting ready to play South Carolina.
Right. That's
the main focus right now. And I think that the goal is within reach to get to the playoff. And then after that, the goal to win a national championship comes later. But yeah, I don't think he's said anything. I don't think Ole Miss will have a quote answer at any point because if Ole Miss keeps winning, you're going to play well into December and well into January.
Yeah.
And he's going to be focused on trying to win a national championship. He's not going to be worried about a contract or any kind of extension. That will come later.
I kind of laugh when I asked you the question about the timeline because you're right. You are so right. Nobody knows, but I have, but you have on these site publishers like yourself from UF, from LSU, and their fan base wants to know a timeline. So they have to speculate on when it could be. But honestly, that's why Lane Kiffin pays Jimmy Sexton so much money so that when we're in week 9, week 10 of the season, he doesn't have to worry about any of this. He knows he's being handled properly, and his silence only drives up the price if there is a price for him to leave.
He said on Monday in his press conference that money was not going to be a deciding factor. And I think that's true. I mean, at this point, it's like how much more money do you want, man? Like you're getting everything you want at Ole Miss and more. That's kind of been my biggest thing about will he go to Florida? Will he go to LSU? Whatever. I don't know if you can replicate the current situation he has at Ole Miss, not just with the infrastructure, the resources with the collective, and the booster support, fan support. I think it's a very unique thing that is, I don't think a lot of people have, where you've got
Mm-hmm.
your athletics director, Keith Carter, is a former basketball player at the school. And then you've got Walker Jones, who's a former football player at the school. They're all around the same age. They all seem to be on the same page and they all want the same thing. That's going to be hard to do anywhere else. I mean, that's Scott Strickland at Florida, or whether it's, Scott Woodward at LSU, or whoever is going to be at LSU if Woodward's not there. But it's been a weird, perfect storm for Ole Miss where everything has just kind of fallen into place. And I think that's just going to be hard for him to leave or turn away despite what Florida and LSU might offer him.
And I also think it's a bit of a sign of the times, right? You're seeing coaches at Indiana, Texas Tech, now Ole Miss, maybe not having to leave those places to ultimately do what they want to do, which is compete and win a national championship. And we're seeing like this new era of football changing right in front of our eyes. And whatever Lane Kiffin chooses to do, it's going to make a big mark on whether or not these other programs outside of the usual blue bloods have a shot at competing year in and year out. So, really interesting to see what happens here with Lane Kiffin. But bottom line, if he wasn't winning, if Ole Miss wasn't having success, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So it is ultimately a good thing. And we're going to shift gears here and talk a little recruiting, because there's been a bunch of programs that have lost their head coaches, namely Penn State, Florida, and now LSU. So I'm going to hit on three guys that I think Ole Miss could make a flip at, and you wrote about it, actually. So let's start with Tavian Branch, Penn State commitment on that defensive line, position of priority, something Ole Miss wants to close on before the cycle's over.
Yeah, absolutely. He was pretty open when James Franklin was let go that he was still committed to Penn State, but he was going to listen to other coaching staffs and he was going to take visits. When I initially spoke with him, he was pretty adamant that he was going to take several visits, and then you fast forward a couple weeks, and then our very own Steve Wiltfong talked to him, and he said that he will visit only Ole Miss officially, and that will be this weekend. I talked to people inside the building. They're trying to get to know him. It's been a whirlwind where he is, Ole Miss has been in contact, but he's been committed to Penn State, so he hasn't really been on campus. He hasn't really gotten to know the staff. So that's been the main thing, I think, for defensive line coach Randall Joyner is he's got to get to know him, make sure that he's a fit, and they'll want to add him to this 26 class. I think he's a fit. I think he is exactly what Ole Miss will need in the middle of that defense. Xavier Harris is going to the NFL after this year. He's having a fantastic season. You put Tavian Branch alongside guys like Cam Franklin, William Eccles, Jam Brown, all these big interior guys that are all high school guys, which I think is pretty interesting, where Ole Miss has really implemented the portal a lot. And the defensive line, I mean, I think you got to tip your cap to Joyner and what Pete Golding have done up front, where they've developed these guys out of high school. So Tavian Branch fits what they want in the middle. He's a super athletic dude. He's not just a big run plugger. I mean, the guy can actually really move. He's an athlete. That is one I think you need to watch closely if you're an Ole Miss fan. He will be in town this weekend. I wouldn't be shocked if he were to commit before he heads to the airport to get back to Pennsylvania.
And then it's no surprise Ole Miss is circling back on four-star defensive lineman Duce Gerald. His dad played for Ole Miss. He's committed to LSU. That coaching vacancy is now open. Ole Miss, can they get him back on campus soon? I mean, where do they stand with Duce Gerald? How likely is a flip there?
Yeah, that one's still kind of in flux right now. He's saying all the right things about his commitment to LSU. And look, Frank Wilson's still there. And Frank Wilson, if you're familiar with the recruiting world, you know who Frank Wilson is. You know how good he is. They're going to try to keep him. I mean, I don't know, it went out this week. I mean, Duce Gerald is now the all-time sacks leader in the state of Georgia in high school, which is phenomenal. He's a bit of an interesting prospect where he's kind of a tweener, where he's not super tall. He doesn't have a lot of length, but I mean, the guy makes plays. It's cliche, but he just finds the ball and he gets there and he makes a play. So 6'1", Really physical, well put together kid too.
Yeah.
Really svelte for a defensive guy, an interior guy. But as far as getting him back on campus, Ole Miss is going to try. They've got these last remaining home games against South Carolina, Florida, and the Citadel before they go to Starkville for Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. They're going to try to get him back. You mentioned his dad, Tavian Gerald's played at Ole Miss back in 2008, 2009, but they're originally from Louisiana. That's where Tavian Gerald is from, his dad. It's an interesting recruitment because he was, Duce was born while he came to Ole Miss to watch his dad play. Like, he doesn't remember because he was, a baby, but, he was in the stadium. So, like, he is very familiar with the program, right. And he's been back plenty of times. And Randall Joyner, Lane Kiffin, Pete Golding are trying to do this flip here. Right now, I'm not so sure, but I know that Ole Miss is going to give it the old college try and try to get him back and see if they can flip him. I know the guys in the recruiting class are doing their best too. Guys like Anthony Davis, JaMychal Garrett, the guys that are already committed to Ole Miss are already blowing him up on the socials to try to get him to flip.
All right. And lastly, the number one player in the state of Mississippi, Jace Matthews. He's committed to Auburn. We know he's looking around because he was at LSU last week. He admitted he was sort of looking around. Obviously, the visit to LSU probably didn't go the way that Tigers coaching staff wanted it to go. So
yeah.
Does Jace Matthews' recruitment have shades of Caleb Cunningham?
Yeah, I think so. Every time I talked to Caleb throughout the recruitment, he always said it was Alabama and Ole Miss. Even when he was committed to Bama, he said Ole Miss was always there. He was always going to give him a shot. Ultimately flips, signs with Ole Miss. Now this one, a little bit different. Jace is a little bit more reserved, doesn't talk as much. But the big thing here is Ole Miss hired former wide receiver and NFL player Dante Moncrief, who is related to Jace Matthews. As soon as Dante Moncrief was hired, he was immediately talking to Jace Matthews. I think that was something. Also with Emmanuel Tucker, who was committed to LSU and is now flipped to Ole Miss. The communication had kind of fallen off, and Ole Miss, the staff really wasn't talking to them as much, even though they were, top targets on the board. They were committed elsewhere. Ole Miss was, kind of allocating resources elsewhere. But now I think Ole Miss has zeroed in on Jace Matthews. You see what Ole Miss is doing this year with true freshman Winston Watkins. I think they're kind of pitching him as, hey, we think that you're more than capable of coming in and making a difference year one. I think that's big. And then, again, just staying home, playing for, the flagship university in your state, as the Ole Miss staff likes to call it. And you mentioned, Josh, with these coaches all losing their job, I don't know if Hugh Freeze is still on a hot seat because of everything else going on in the coaching carousel. Auburn might not want to get in the race to find another coach. But
no, it's hot. Trust me, it's hot.
Yeah. If things were to change on the Plains, I think Jace Matthews would absolutely look around. I think he is still looking around already.
So
he was at LSU last weekend. But Ole Miss is going to come after him. I mentioned the family connection, and then George McDonald, the wide receivers coach, has still been in contact with him and have been talking to him. So Lane Kiffin's going to find 2 or 3 guys late that he will hone in on when he's not focused on winning football games, and I think Jace Matthews is one of them.
Yeah, pretty unbelievable time right now in Oxford. Ole Miss fans, talk to Zach and I. How do you feel? Just how do you feel about the season? It's got to feel great. I know there's a lot of chaos surrounding Lane Kiffin's name, but like I said earlier, if they weren't winning, you wouldn't hear about it. So talk to us. How you guys feeling? Put it in the comment section below.